itself is an M3 half-track. It's one of the first vehicles to come off the production line from the Diamond Tea factory in the United States. This vehicle itself is one of the first 7,000 to come off the production line, so it's a very rare find. You won't find one this old that has never been modified into a later version, so it's very unique. This variant was actually a command post variant which had two wireless sets in the back to be used for communications between the front lines of the regiment and the rear areas, higher headquarters, etc. The vehicle itself was crewed by the colonel of during the war, Colonel Witherspoon. It was actually crewed by his #1 guys, his intelligence sergeant, his adjutant, his battle adjutant, and a radio operator. And their job was critical to the success of the formation to do what they needed to do in action. I understand it was under shell fire numerous times. It narrowly avoided some mines, and it had a long journey to find its way back to North America, followed by all the way back to Alberta. And it sat outside for about 35 years before we started the restoration, so the rust damage was considerable. The only piece of the vehicle we actually did not refurbish or fix as such is a tow hook on the front end. The two tow hooks are not the same shape or size due to some damage that occurred during the fighting in Normandy. Apparently the vehicle became bogged in a ditch in a Norman field, and they weren't able to get it out by themselves. So the sergeant asked the driver to get out, hook a tow cable up to the vehicle to a passing Sherman tank to get out. Apparently the Sherman tank became bogged as well, so it took a second vehicle to attach to pull it out completely. And when they did that in the process, they actually stretched this tow cable or this tow hook out flat, and that's hardened steel, so it's very, very hard to do that. So I can't imagine the force involved pulling the vehicle out of the ditch. Must have been incredible to stretch a hardened steel cable or tow hook to that extent. And we left it there for a conversation piece, and also because it's part of the history of the vehicle. It was actually war damage that occurred in Normandy during the fighting. The best part is actually taking one of the veterans that served in this vehicle out for a drive yesterday, and actually having him ride in the vehicle again after so many years, and seeing the smile on his face made the about 8,800 hours of labor definitely worthwhile. About 1,000 man days, about $58,000 from the Regimental Foundation, which is non-military money. It's actually raised money. I couldn't have asked for a better opportunity to present ourselves for the regiment and to finish this vehicle to where it is today. It's just unbelievable to see it.
Vice Regal salute. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Brian Hodgson, and I'm your MC for this evening. You'll notice on your tables various battle honors of the South Alberta Light Horse from 1885 through the First and Second Wars. It is my pleasure now to invite the Honorary Colonel of the Regiment, Stanley Miller, to say a few words.
Thank you, Colonel. Your Honors, the Honorable Normie Kwong, and our Honor Mrs. Mary Kwong. Many thanks on behalf of the South Alberta Light Horse and the Foundation for your assistance and courtesy in attending our dinner here this evening. The dinner is designed to thank the many people who have helped us put on our presentation and to have our book here. Your Honors, the Queen in her message, which she so kindly allowed us to reproduce, conveyed the following. Please convey my warm thanks to the officers, warrant officers, and senior non-commissioned officers, junior non-commissioned officers, soldiers, and the Regimental Foundation Board of the South Alberta Light Horse Regiment Foundation for their message of loyal greeting sent on the occasion of their centennial. I was interested to read the history of the South Alberta Light Horse and send my best wishes to all those concerned during this most memorable anniversary year. Elizabeth R. Your Honors, therefore, it's a great privilege on behalf of myself, Honorary Colonel John Watson, Lieutenant Colonel John Putt, and the regiment to present you with a leather-bound copy of the Century of Service in the History of the South Alberta Light Horse.
It is now my honor to propose a toast to our two allied regiments. And by way of a bit of explanation, in 1915, the 15th Light Horse of Alberta and the British Army's 15th, the King's Hussars, formed a strong bond of friendship and a formal alliance. The 15th King's Hussars in 1922 became the 15th, 19th, the King's Royal Hussars. And in 1992, the Light Dragoons, who as we speak are preparing for service in Iraq, and we wish them well. In 1931, the South Alberta Regiment was allied with the East Surrey Regiment, and through a series of amalgamations, is now today the Princess of Wales's Royal Regiment, Queens and Royal Hampshires. This regiment has just returned from service in Iraq, where uniquely were awarded 27 awards for gallantry, and they include a Victoria Cross, the first to be awarded to a living soldier since 1965, 2 Distinguished Service Orders, and 7 military crosses and sundry other decorations. I would now ask you to rise and drink a toast to our two allied regiments, the Light Dragoons and the Princess of Wales's Royal Regiment. The allied regiments. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a little like being in church on Sunday. You're up and down. But I'm honored, Colonel Stan and Colonel John and Colonel Tom, to be asked to propose a toast to my regiment, which, as we know, is celebrating its centenary. And I may, if I may be allowed a minute, to thank Colonel Stan Milner and his terrific leadership and the leadership displayed by John Watson and Tom Putt, who have done a tremendous job in putting this day together. So I would ask you all now to rise and drink a toast to the South Alberta Light Horse. The regiment. And you now may be seated. Thank you.
It is my great privilege tonight to introduce to you our guest speaker, Lieutenant General Major General Andy Leslie.
No, I like that.
Go on. Now, if I say it often enough, I'm sure it'll become true.
Anytime you can buy to mess around.
No, sir, that's when you get low. If you bid high, he buys you one. But I do want to, I'd like to preface my comments about General Andy by describing how I see military life. In very simple terms, military service, in my experience, is all about great friends, it's all about great soldiers, it's all about great family, and it's all about great leaders. So, General Andy, as a friend, General Leslie and I met first as subalterns in Germany in 1983. where he was serving with 1RCHA as a captain, a forward observation officer in a particular battery in 1RCHA, with my brother. And being a brand new second lieutenant, I had nowhere to live, I had no one to feed me, and I had no friends. And General Andy took me in, but more importantly, Karen took me in, fed me, fueled me, and invited me to learn how to play Risk. Let's just say you don't want to take Karen on at Risk. And if Andy's any good at Risk as he is in the military business, we are in a big world of hurt. But in soldiering, General Leslie has been a soldier since 1977, when he was a young reserve artilleryman with the Bytown Gunners in Ottawa. In '81, he joined the regular army, and thereafter he's been a soldier. He's been soldiering around the world ever since. And his soldiering experience includes life with the airborne gunners. That's jumping at a perfectly serviceable aircraft, if you don't know what that means. French Commando course and unarmed combat, amongst others. In terms of family, General Andy is unique in the Canadian military, not by virtue of himself alone, but by virtue of the lineage that he has come from and the lineage he continues to perpetuate in terms of uniform service to Canada. You may know that his grandfather was General MacNaughton, Commander Corps Artillery in the First War, Commander of the Canadian Army, and eventually Minister of National Defense at the end of the Second World War. His father is General Leslie, served with the guns. He's the third in a line of gunners, so truly a son of a gun. And I have to tell you, you're not going to believe this, but there's another one. And his son Alexander, who is in RMC as a young artillery officer in the making. So there's 4 of them. He commanded 1 brigade here from 1997 to 1999. I'm proud to have been one of his followers, his successors in commanding 1 brigade in a period where we're in a switch. And if you remember Kosovo '99, General Andy produced the soldiers that served us so proudly in Kosovo in 1999. And from 2003 to the spring of, or the Christmas, just post-Christmas 2003, early 2004, he was Deputy Commander of the International Security Assistance Force in Afghanistan, where he and the team of Canadians there served us all so proudly. Today, General Andy is a student. He's not got enough from the School of Life, and a master's apparently doesn't qualify anymore. So now he is studying his PhD with the Royal Military College at Royal Military College in Kingston. He tells me it's a 3-phase operation. Phase 1 is school, and apparently that finishes soon. Phase 2 is research and paper writing. That's coming next, and then he's got to defend a thesis, I understand, is Phase 3. So a couple more years, and I figure, well, take 10, sir, don't worry about it. They've got as much to learn from you as I'm sure you are trying to learn from them. General Leslie is a friend. General Leslie is a soldier. He's a family man, and he's a leader. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome General Andy Leslie.
Never believe everything that a general tells you. So to General Beer, thank you very much for those overly kind words of introduction. Your Honors, ladies and gentlemen, following on from the theme of Colonel Milner, I think this is a night for thank yous. And with your permission, I will just go through some little vignettes on perhaps whom we should think about and thank for the tremendous successes that the South Alberta Light Horse, 1 Brigade, the reserve organization that supports them, Land Forces Western Area, Edmonton, Calgary, Medicine Hat, indeed Canada have contributed in terms of producing this fine organization and the superb soldiers that serve our country so well. This morning, or rather earlier this afternoon, for those of you who didn't make it to the parade for other reasons, we had the ambassador from Afghanistan join us at the request of Colonel Milner. I've known Ambassador Stem for about 2 years now, and he's a fine man. And he is one of President Karzai's inner team, one of those expatriate Pashtun whom he had recruited after his family fled the Soviet invasion and subsequent occupation of Afghanistan in 1979. They fled to the States. Very worldly man. He's been educated in England and France, the United States, a variety of degrees, and he gave all that up to go back to Afghanistan because he felt it was his duty, as did hundreds of other expatriate Afghani intellectuals and leaders, if you would, potential leaders of the community. When I first saw him, and it's perhaps a good thing he's not here right now, when I first saw him, his office was a cubicle not much bigger than the washroom. Don't forget, this is a man who studied at a very prestigious university in Washington and was a senior manager for an extraordinarily successful information technology firm in Washington, D.C. His office in Kabul had no phone, one chair, which was an old car chair, no power, and no heat. To get to his office, which was on the third, I think, or fourth floor, you had to pass an endless file of Mujahideen warriors crouched in the corridor, each with their AK-47 machine gun. And various disputes and contretemps would break out. And his job was Director of Communications for President Karzai when they were reaching out to the rest of the world for help. So, thank you to those types of people, like the good ambassador, who has now been sent by President Karzai to our country in recognition of the strong bond that your soldiers, the people you support, have forged with that shattered country. Thank you to people like Ambassador Hamad Samad, who've come to our country and have dedicated their lives to trying to essentially help not only their nation, but the rest of the world become a better and safer place. Now, how does that link to what we're celebrating today? Well, another thank you on a parallel stream. The guiding hand behind the success of the day, of course, the success of the day quite properly belongs to the young soldiers on parade. But there's no doubt that Colonel Milner and Honorary Lieutenant Colonel Watson and Tom Putt have been absolutely instrumental in all the successes that the regiment currently enjoys. And without any further ado, I would suggest we stop for about 2 to 3 seconds and give them a round of applause, because it's been bloody brilliant. What do we in the Canadian Forces want from our reserve units? We want community spirit. We want community involvement. We want our reserve units to act as the footprint amongst those who, in the final analysis, all soldiers work for, of course, whom are the citizens of Canada. We don't want our soldiers to be locked away in army bases and never seen again. We want opinion shapers. We want decision makers. And we want the average citizen in the street to become fully involved in their armed forces. And I have to tell you, I've been stationed across many, many portions of this great land. The resonance and the strength of the relationship between the military and the local community is no stronger than in Alberta. It is a remarkable relationship. A remarkable relationship, which quite frankly the rest of Canada would do well to emulate. And this, of course, is a function of not only leadership, but also of community involvement, of willingness, of the ability to give a damn about the young men and women who put on uniform and go away to these strange places, who in turn save lives by risking theirs to protect the weak and the innocent. And that's why the Afghan ambassador traveled from Ottawa to here to come and pay his respects to the soldiers of the South Alberta Light Horse. Members of the South Alberta Light Horse have strapped on 40 to 50 pounds of body armor and have danced that very delicate dance around 2 o'clock in the morning in the couloirs and alleyways of Kabul, where if you make a mistake, you die. There's a price to pay, though, because you know this isn't a game. And tragically, we've spilled blood in Afghanistan, and we've had ours spilt in return. But it's a price worth paying because we are protecting the weak and the innocent, and we're projecting our values of taking care of those who are less fortunate than us by stepping up to the plate. Yes, it costs, both in terms of human lives and money, but by stepping up to the plate and going overseas and helping, we're better Canadians for it. That is why the ambassador came. I'd also like to thank the soldiers and their families on parade today. It's a truism in the Canadian Army, but I'm going to say it anyways. We are nothing without our soldiers, and we actually produce really, really good ones. And one of the reasons why they are so good is they're a reflection of you. So it's not a community which is isolated. It's not a community which is off on its own, doing its own thing, developing its own culture. Canadian soldiers essentially are all ambassadors when they go overseas. I'd like to thank the political and business community, the extraordinary collection that I see in front of me, who represent power, wealth, talent, and also concern, because you're willing to come out and support your South Alberta Light Horse organization. And of course, I'd like to thank those involved in crafting, writing, or producing the superb regimental history, which I don't have a copy of yet, but I'm told maybe I will get one if I keep on talking. Okay, that was a shameless pitch, and I apologize, but I really want a copy. I'd also like to thank 1 Brigade and Lord Strathcona's Horse, who've done such a good job in helping the South Alberta Light Horse. Edmonton Garrison, who gives them the beans and bullets with which to do their job. And Land Forces Western Area for giving them the guidance and the direction and not micromanaging them when it comes time to actually pulling all the goodies out of the fire or putting on such splendid venues. I'd like to thank the province of Alberta, to which I've already referred to in passing once before, but I'd like to thank the province for producing such fine sons and daughters that generals like me in Ottawa will send overseas to represent you and your interests. And they do make a difference. They save the lives of tens of thousands. Finally, I'd like to thank the people who do the real work. Once again, the Canadian privates and troopers who, as we speak right now, are, as I mentioned, putting on body armor, hooking up their night vision goggles, checking out their communications equipment, and now they're about to set out on patrol on foot or in their vehicles, regular and reserve, from many communities across Canada, some of which are from Alberta, to go out and protect the weak and the innocent. And of course, that cycle, the deployment cycle of the Army, will continue. So by this time next year, you can expect not hundreds, but perhaps close to thousands of soldiers from Western Canada to be either back in Afghanistan in much larger numbers than before, or who knows, wherever else we might be needed. So to all of you, thank you very much indeed for the honor and the opportunity to come and speak with you. It's been an absolutely splendid day under extraordinary settings, and I feel very privileged for Karen and I to have been invited to participate. Colonel, and Colonel, thank you very much.
General, if I could get you to come back up again, it appears to be true that generals can see into the future.